Before we get into this case, I'd just like to remind people that this film is MA15+. So if you are under 15 and do not have an adult guardian watching with you, then please do not put this on. And if you can't stomach gore, then I recommend turning it off now. Without further ado, let's get into the case. Note the disclaimer.
"43 seconds of logos."
What are you, Guinness? Looking for a world record of the shortest logos? No? Well, cut it out!
How did I miss it?
Galahad would be amazing at CinemaSins, but hey, we all know why you, a highly trained Secret Service guy, missed it. The plot.
While I would love to give Jeremy a sin for spelling out the plot again, what I'm more interested in, much like the Birdman, is how the f*** did you misspell CinemaSins? Why the space? That's not even in your logo!
Yep, this movie has the balls to go for the snow globe transition shot.
Oh, so the alarm clock to flight timetable with the 180 in Final Destination wasn't enough for you? Now you're going after snow globes? Should I even ask what he played with as a kid?
Are there seriously not any guards outside this door right now? I have people inside doing absolutely nothing.
Why would they have guards outside of a place that they broke into? And even though this is in Argentina, this is the middle of nowhere. Who in their right mind will visit a lonely cabin in a tundra like this?
Furthermore, any random asshole can knock on the door in the middle of nowhere and you just answer it with the slightest amount of caution?
That would be a whole lot funnier if the goon wasn't pulling out a gun from behind him. Also, you admit this is the middle of nowhere and expect someone to guard the door. Maybe this was the walking contradiction Green Day was talking about.
Okay, so how did Gazelle manage to walk across the floor without anyone hearing her? This floor isn't carpeted, so how did she run without it sounding like Oscar Pistorius running from a burglar?
In a rare move for this series, I'm going to have to correct a sin from the Birdman's video on this one.
Except that's a blatant lie, because the movie shows that the floor is carpeted.
That is very clearly a rug. It's in one spot in the main room, while the rest of it is stone, which means CinemaSins was actually right to ask how, especially since she either might have come in through the window or a rear entrance. So no sin for CinemaSins, but I'm not removing one either.
When it comes down to it, this shot represents the love and hate of the Star Wars saga.
Kinda hard to tell where you're going with this, especially as opinions on the prequels have now shifted thanks to the sequels, and while the original is still in its highest regard. However, I don't have to go over all of that, because that's not a sin of Kingsman. Stick to the assignment, Jeremy.
This hologram meeting intrigues me. Do all of these agents bring their coasters and drinking glasses with them into the field, just in case one of their brothers dies and they need to toast him?
Why is it that the first thought you have about this ceremony is that these agents are in the field? They could be in a safe house.
And why does the hologram camera pick up the glass and coaster but nothing else about their surrounding? And how did all these busy...
Nobody cares! Try picking a more suitable candidate this time.
You're still holding a grudge about the last guy this one recruited? 17 years later? What's the statute of limitations on a bum recommendation to the Kingsman forces?
Dude, Galahad said it first.
17 years, and still evolving with the times remains an entirely foreign concept to you. Need I remind you I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that young man?
If the fellow that saved him didn't act fast on the grenade, Galahad and Merlin would also be dead, and the rest of the movie wouldn't continue like this.
These excessive liquor bottles are an orgy of evidence that suggests Eggsy lives a less than pleasant home life.
Objection speculation. Just because someone's home has a full shelf or cabinet full of hard alcohol, and sometimes mixers, doesn't mean their home life is awful. You just have to look at the behaviours, as there are nice and pleasant drunks, while in this case, Eggsy's stepfather is an abusive prick towards him and his mother.
Eggsy? Really? I'm not British enough to know if this kid's name is a flat-out joke or just charming.
Oh, do me a favour, Jezza. In fact, I'll let the Birdman take this one.
Kingsman is based on a comic book series. The author of those books had a childhood friend named Eggsy, who was called that because he didn't like eggs. He thought it was funny, so he nicknamed Gary Eggsy.
Like we all say here, questions don't count as sins because they have answers.
We'll show your mother how free can be good company.
Mom moves on from her dead husband and starts picking nothing but loser asshole boyfriends cliche.
To be fair, that is annoying to see, but Blended had a similar concept despite the fact that Jim Friedman's character wasn't actually that much of an asshole. So there are some films that buck the trend. This, however, is just an instance of Jeremy seeing a segment of reality again.
Are you mental, cuz? You just get that lot to do you?
I don't know about you, but if I go into a pub and see a whole bunch of people I hate sitting nearby, I don't drink in that pub.
Oh dear.
What are you doing here? You taking a piss?
Damn, do these guys have a synced up drinking schedule or something?
Nah, mate, this is a regular haunt for these mugs, and they think of it as their territory. And while pubs are everywhere in England, Eggsy and Harry just went for the closest one they could find. And for further reference, this will be the only instance I'm going to call him Harry. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to say Galahad.
This guy only sees the tooth because he too is experiencing slow motion right now.
Or it's because he saw something coming out of the other hood's mouth and not wanting to get covered in whatever it was, tried to back away.
Oh, sure, people have fun ragging on the Bourne movies for shaky cam fight scenes, but this movie gets all the love for what amounts to many missing frames, jumpy cam fight scenes.
I beg your fucking pardon, bruv. The scene was brilliant. You've gone totally balmy.
I am absolutely fine with umbrella-assisted brawling, but I draw the line at amnesia darts, goddammit.
Hold on. So, it's a fantasy secret agent-style film based on a series of comic books, and you're okay with Galahad using an umbrella during the fight? But a wristwatch, firing a dart, loaded with anesthetic, which usually causes amnesia, is where you get lost? I am utterly gobsmacked here.
Also, Harry will totally not amnesia dart these guys because he needs them to tell Eggsy's stepdad about the fight and conduct an elaborate test to examine Eggsy's loyalty. But they know all sorts of stuff they shouldn't know and never get amnesia darted.
And he would want to do that why? If you win a fight, your opponent will know not to mess with you again.
20th Century Fox logo overload.
Jeremy points things out on screen cliché.
The story of the internet billionaire's rise to power is expected to be this award season's hot ticket.
Why?
Mock away, but I can imagine a movie showcasing Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos' rise to fame would still be a massive hit at the box office. Also that naff chuckle.
Also, this scroll says breaking news, but all it wants to report is a number to text and an email address.
Jeremy is never getting a job in news broadcasting, TV or otherwise, because the breaking news appears above that ticker, and lots of news stations do the exact same thing.
Damn, how many rolls of paper towel does this damn kitchen need? And this one on the dispenser has the towels facing wall first, and I fucking hate that.
Jeremy points things out on the screen cliché. However, I will agree with his point about the one roll being on the holder backwards, so I will neither add or remove a sin here.
Eggsy walks into his house like Dean's buddies weren't going to report the incident at the pub. But besides that, damn, those guys woke up from unconsciousness and called Dean about it really fast, didn't they?
Despite being born 2 years after the first one was ever invented, Jeremy has seemingly never heard of a mobile phone. Also, the time duration between the fight and Eggsy arriving at the flat was a total of 2 hours and 33 minutes, meaning the hoods didn't regain consciousness really fast.
Eggsy is suddenly a parkour badass.
Suddenly? Have you got a screw loose, old chap? Galahad was talking about how Eggsy used to be an Olympic-level athlete, and the movie is actually showcasing that.
Late? So, wait a minute, one of your tasks after Lancelot died was to find a recruit. Are you telling me that you waited until Eggsy got in trouble and called you out of the blue to finally decide on one? Did you not have a plan B in this scenario? Amazing all this with Eggsy happened in the last 24 hours.
Oi, someone get Green Day on the horn because you are a walking contradiction. Anyway, Galahad and Eggsy were supposed to be there before 9 PM, which is why he calls out, "We're late." They lost about 5 hours between Eggsy leaving home and escaping the thugs, and arriving at the Kingsman tailor shop, with, I can imagine, about another 30 minutes or so on the shuttle. In other words, Jeremy is confused by the passage of time.
Whitest recruitment ever.
So, Jeremy, The Simpsons called, the comic book guy wants his quote back. And if you're wondering why the sin value has gone higher, refer to the previous video.
Those idiots who call themselves politicians have buried their heads in the sand and stood for nothing but re-election.
Is this guy a bad guy or simply right?
Truth be told, you could be a bad guy and make some good points, just like you can be a good guy and get things wrong. I might bring this up if and when I end up covering The Incredibles, but putting that aside, and to quote the Birdman again here, this motherfucker's plan is to settle or end global warming by hypnotizing people to kill themselves.
I know most of these guys are basically geniuses from renowned universities, but where do you learn this type of survival shit? You mean you've run across stories where people were drowning and they use shower heads and toilets as a breathing apparatus? How often does that come up?
Okay, I knew he was a shit talker, but this is just ridiculous. Anyway, the idea was supposed to be that there's supposed to be a pocket of air around the U-bend of a toilet, Normally this would work, but the wrinkle in this plan is that the water pressure would have forced air out of every nook and cranny of this room because it is completely submerged, and this would include the pipes. But once again, Jeremy is missing the true sin by asking irrelevant questions and refusing to suspend his disbelief.
I think I'll believe the toilet scuba tank before I believe someone can punch a two-way mirror to death underwater. I mean, Jesus.
Do you see what I mean about refusing to suspend his disbelief?
Let's talk about how Men in Black this movie is.
Please no. I haven't even found a secretary yet.
Smacking Mark Hamill for any reason.
Kevin Conroy's ghost, you are not under oath to answer that.
You know what? If not for 50 Shades of Grey, I would not be noticing overly large panda art.
Oh, not again. Also, pointing things out on the screen cliche.
This is the Ender's Game Divergent portion of the movie.
Okay, I need a break from this. I'll just tally up how many more pop culture references there are in this review and award him that many sins.
The identifiable scar for villain's evil plan is easily identifiable.
Pointing things out on the screen cliche.
Eggsy somehow knows to operate this clipboard and call up YouTube.
Wait. Are you saying a millennial doesn't know how to operate a tablet? Blimey, what planet are you on?
The four non-main characters jump out of the plane, and it takes her 30 seconds to finally jump. Unless the plane is simply hovering, which we know it ain't, this chick somehow finds her teammates and is able to catch up to them in no time, even though the plane was probably several miles ahead of the original drop point. But hey man, we all know dives like this wait for movie drama.
Clearly, Jeremy has never been skydiving before. I mean, no sweat, neither have I, but I can actually do a little bit of research. Skydivers can slow their descent by spreading their arms and legs out to create a larger surface area, and they can speed it up by pulling their body inwards to reduce drag and become more streamlined. That is why Roxy and Eggsy caught up to the rest of the group, because the rest of the group slowed down their descent, and Roxy and Eggsy sped theirs up.
I guess all the product placement in this movie is a joke, which I'm totally fine with. What I'm not fine with is the rich asshole serving McDonald's to his rich clients. I mean, even as a joke, how does he expect to woo the right people with this Also, you, McMovie.
What the I mean, I'm more of a Hungry Jack's Burger King kind of guy myself, but it is hard to argue with a quarter pounder with fries.
When I was a kid, that was my dream job. Gentleman spy.
I think I know why you never became one, considering the Kingsman's recruiting standards. Did I just read racial subtext in a not-so-serious spy flick? Well, I guess that's a sin on me.
Sick burn on yourself, but dude, let me do the sinning.
Southglade Mission Church is a hate group based in Kentucky.
Oh no, not another spy movie going to Kentucky. Do British people think of Kentucky as the supervillain playground in the United States?
Ooh, that one didn't age particularly well, since the sequel takes place with a similar spy agency in Kentucky. And besides, the Birdman has already covered this about the hillbillies, but I need to cover this of my own merit.
Hey everyone, you know how I hate to be annoying, but that picture...
I hate to cut you off there, Jezza, but you live to be a knobhead.
You know, I think if I woke up tied to some train tracks and I knew I was in an organization that liked to f*** with people, I might take this almost too calmly. In other words, the fact that you've been tricked so many times eventually leads you to the conclusion that you're not in a situation you think you are, and therefore the results of such a test are skewed.
Objection misleading. For one, you brought up Eggsy jumping out of a plane with a parachute that he didn't know was fully functional. If his parachute actually wasn't working, or if no one gave him any help, he legitimately could have died there. And in another example, we have the flooded room from earlier. If this was realistic and the U-bend was flooded by the pressure, no one would have survived in that room. And if not that, then it sounds like you're just saying that this was something obviously set up by the Kingsman agents, which wasn't actually obvious to the recruits or to the audience. Hell, when I first watched this, I thought he was incredibly close to death.
Just the King's Arthur.
I mean, this guy is a total dumbass.
Is that the title of your autobiography? Should be an interesting read if that's the case.
This fitting room leads to a weapons and gadget chamber that you can access simply by pulling a hook, something that could easily be done on accident. Now, maybe the tailor outside doesn't let you go in this room if you're a normal person, but why is it all left a chance? Galahad needed to use a biometric system to make the floor descend earlier, so why not here too?
Well, you already gave the answer. The tailors don't let normal customers into that fitting room, which means no one will use that hook and accidentally open up the weapons room.
Shoot the dog.
And he doesn't, which is fairly ridiculous at this stage when every test has been a bit of a practical joke. And how has he not heard of this classic spy school where they ask you to shoot one of your loved ones and the gun is filled with blanks?
At least the girl's got balls.
Yeah, but what would have happened if both of them passed this test? Is there something even more up you have in store if they somehow don't know they're being messed with? Would they have both passed? You'd have to have a girl in your Knights of the Round Table motif. I guess she'd be Guinevere, but then that opens up a whole bunch of other questions, namely if two dudes pass the test.
What the bleeding hell are you on, you muppet? They're both trying out for the Lancelot role, and when Roxy passes, she earns the title of Lancelot. But then, of course, if the nonsense idea of 2 people getting through was true, then the 2 Kingsman agents would have been sworn in, where Roxy becomes Guinevere, and the testing would end right there. Long and the short of it, this pretending to be progressive individual is being really sexist.
Eggsy stole this car, but how did he get off the Kingsman estate with it?
Pretty much like a normal car. It didn't become autonomous until Galahad opened his tablet, redirecting it from the pub to his villa.
Okay, I'm just going to remove 5 sins for this scene right here. Anybody mind that? I mean, Freebird and everything?
I don't mind. But you did miss the space between free and bird here, so for this I will neither add or remove a sin.
Now I'm gonna tell you my whole plan, and then I'm gonna come up with some absurd and convoluted way to kill you, and you'll find an equally convoluted way to escape. Well, this ain't that kind of movie.
Haha, wink at the audience enough and they will forgive anything, right?
I'm getting really tired of this motherfucking sinner sinning this motherfucker in his badass quote. Also, if Galahad escaped, you still would have called it a cliche and sinned it.
No.
Know yourself.
Eggsy drives to the Kingsman shop, which means he has to go through all the biometrics to make the floor descend so he can take the shuttle to go to the mansion. So why is he able to do that when he failed the test and is no longer part of the program?
You wanna try that again, you mug? This is the dining room. It's part of the Savile Row tailor shop and is up the stairs, not down the elevator, which we see in the beginning of the film as soon as they start talk of the agent selection process. Yet another example of your hyper-observance not working correctly.
Pen surgery.
Everything in a Kingsman's weapons cabinet is dual purpose. A fountain pen can carry a remote-controlled poison, a pair of shoes can contain a neurotoxin blade, umbrellas and suits are bulletproof, and the watches can hold amnesia darts. I mean, Jeremy points things out on the screen cliché.
You know, this movie isn't the type of movie where the villain tells the hero his evil plan and puts him in an easily escapable situation, but it is the type of movie where the hero gets a last-second break to help foil an evil plan.
Why are you trying to confuse me here? You accept the perilous situation that one of the heroes is involved in, but not the solution.
All these guys miss Eggsy, who isn't dodging or anything.
Did you listen to what I said earlier about a Kingsman suit being bulletproof? Did you listen to what Galahad had to say about it when he was discussing wardrobe with Eggsy? Oh, no, of course you didn't, because if you did, you wouldn't be saying this bullshit.
When you're on a secret plane that you can only access by being a Kingsman in the first place, why do you need a secret compartment for weapons?
I would imagine if they were out in the open, Border Force would have a lot of questions.
None of these guys thinks to shoot the legs and feet.
If you rain a massive hail of gunfire towards a guy in a Kingsman bulletproof suit, he won't get hit by a bullet. That's why it's called f***ing bulletproof!
These implants blow up domino style instead of all at once.
What CinemaSins fails to grasp here is that these are happening all at once. But we have the visuals to see and understand who among Valentine's guests and saviors is dying, where, and when.
Also, why are all the head implant explosions so colorful? And why did someone take the time to make sure there were 4 distinct color possibilities?
Well, if you paid attention to Valentine's introduction in Argentina, you'd know that he has a weak stomach when it comes to blood and gore. Gazelle had to cover the dead bodies of goons and Lancelot with towels and sheets. Valentine looked away when he shot Galahad in the face, and when he was stabbed by Eggsy throwing Gazelle's leg into him, he blew chunks all over his monitor. That's why the head implants explode like an OK Go music video, to keep Valentine from getting sick.
Sorry, love. Gotta save the world.
If you save the world, we can do it in the asshole.
The power of boners was already strong enough to save the world, but Swedish anal sex boners, that's a whole different ball of wax, and unexpected lube purchases.
Jeremy says boner. Twice.
Okay, but when they save the day later, how are there not still hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dead people from this global rampage?
That's not something the movie is at liberty to showcase, Jeremy. And even if they did, you'd find a convoluted way to sin it.
Could be said that the end of this movie got downright cheeky, am I right?
Just so you know, that wasn't as funny as you thought it was. And with that, court is adjourned. Be sure to leave any more suggestions for CinemaSins sins down below, and I will see you in the next video.